So my name is Melissa Duchak. I'm the executive director of the Meek Arts Center, and I'm very pleased to be talking today with Silvie and Bryan Cheng of Cheng² Duo. We're so looking forward to having you join us here at the Meek Arts Center for our opening performance of our 25-26 Resonate series. That is Sunday, October 19th at 3 p.m. Great to meet you, Silvie and Bryan. Let's start off with just asking, where are you in the world right now?
I'm Silvie and I'm here in New York City.
And I just got back home to Berlin a few hours ago.
Wow. Okay. So the stories of Berlin and New York were true.
That's right. Yeah.
And Silvie, I see a different instrument than piano in the background there. Can you tell us about that?
That is not mine. My partner is a jazz musician. He actually plays drums, but enjoys tickling the bass every now and then too. So we have instruments abound in this apartment.
Right. And are you in the room where your piano is as well?
Actually, no, my piano is in the next room. You can kind of see it. Yeah,
Okay.
over there behind me.
Fascinating. Okay. So great. So thanks for joining. So chamber music, as we know, by definition, is a very intimate form of communication. If you compare it to, bigger groups or orchestras. And I'm sure our audience would find it quite fascinating that you're brother and sister. And I'm sure you've been asked this a lot. But did you always play together since you were kids? And another question I have is, how do you balance that? You both have solo careers, so how do you balance the chamber music part that you've probably been doing for a long time with the solo career? Maybe I'll ask you first, Bryan.
Yeah, it was very natural the way we started to play together. I often say we really did play in the sense that it was for fun and among many other hobbies that we did together. We played sports together. We would go outside in the snow and build snowmen, and then we would come and play music at home. Sylvie's a bit older, so she started earlier than me, and actually when I was still in the womb, and therefore I grew up. As a baby, like hearing piano music at home and just in general, just these wonderful sounds. And so I was inspired to take up another instrument. And our parents, being non-musicians, they had no idea really what was out there besides piano. So they introduced me to all the different instruments through the Suzuki School in Ottawa, where I was born and where we both were raised. And yeah, we had many great opportunities to perform in very casual settings, for the local music club, and very low pressure but enjoyable opportunities. And I think that fostered a love early on for performing and performing together, and definitely strengthened our bond.
Some people always say, it was so smart of your parents to have the first child play piano and the second one play something else, and then you could accompany. And I was like, listen, if that was the plan, I don't think this would be happening. And so I think because it was just an organic, really hobby that started, and that kind of because they're non-musicians, our secret language in a way, it was like a code that Bryan and I could speak. We could just go off into another room and play our instruments together. I think really just the love and the joy of experiencing this totally new world that continues to today. And that's, I think, what has made it last.
I think that's really interesting that you think if it had been the plan, it wouldn't have worked as well.
Well, because we joke back that, if our parents had had a third, we could have had a trio. But then you always think about that means that the third child, unlike us, where we got to pick our instrument and it felt very natural, we would be forcing, the baby of the family to play violin. And if that wasn't a certain match, like if you're really forcing an idea upon someone, then maybe that's where tension and friction lies. But because for us, it was just a magnetic sort of gravitational pull. Yeah, there was nothing for us to rebel against.
Great. And that was another question I had. So it sounds like you picked piano, Sylvie, like that was your choice, and Bryan, because that's also interesting, right? How sometimes parents will think, oh, let's try this instrument, and maybe it's the right fit, maybe it's not. Yeah, but it sounds like you both sort of gravitated towards the instruments you ended up on naturally
Yeah,
yourselves.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I chose the cello because I was attracted to the deep and scary sound, is how I described it when I was 3.5, first encountering it. And actually, I never played another instrument seriously as much as I did cello. Although I wish I could play piano very well, like a lot of my other string colleagues.
But
Yeah,
speaking of forcing, I was the in-house piano teacher. So you see how that didn't really, this is why that didn't last, I think. But over the years, we did dabble with various instruments. Bryan played trumpet in middle school. I played flute, and then I played viola in high school. But I don't think we didn't really quite find our groove with those instruments as much as our main ones.
I think it's really interesting for parents to hear these the stories about what worked, and it's, yeah, fascinating. Uh, okay, and I guess my other question, because chamber music sometimes, people can have strong opinions about things, and chamber music is one of those places where, like any group of human beings, that you do have to sort of compromise sometimes. It seems like you have a very close and great communication between the two of you, great relationship, great communication. Any friction ever happen? Is there anyone who gets their way more often than the other person, or any stories you got to tell?
I think probably earlier when the age difference was proportionally bigger, there might have been moments where Sylvie perhaps was taking more lead as the much older sibling, even though I mean the age gap never changed, but in terms of just
If
how
I was a
much
teenager
experience,
and you were a
how much
child.
experience you have. But now that we're more or less adults, depending on your definition of that, I think it's really become quite equal, and we actually also enjoy the sort of different influences that we get living in two very different metropoli, and I think that that is part of what makes the partnership so fluid and dynamic and alive, is the fact that we're not exactly the same person. And although we do have very, very similar tastes and upbringings, and that's why we share this common language, we also bring so many different facets from each of our individual interests and inspirations. And so each time we meet on a different continent for a tour to prepare a new program, it does still feel fresh while remaining also, yeah, at the base level, very trusting.
Wow. Anything to add to that, Sylvia? That's
I
beautiful.
don't think I have any more beautiful words.
That's great. That's a great segue to, thank you, Bryan. It's a great segue to, if you can just talk a little bit, both of you, about your solo work, and also what you're doing in the metropolis, more the cities that you're living in, and just tell us a little bit about your own, where you studied, what you've been doing lately. Do you want to start us off, Sylvie?
Sure. So, how Bryan and I actually each ended up in our various cities was the pursuit of secondary education. So, each of us, I guess you were 18, 17, around the same age, and we arrived at that sort of pivotal moment in life where you decide where to pursue further studies of your instrument. I went to the Manhattan School of Music in New York, and Bryan went to the University of Arts in Berlin. And as typically happens with musicians, you sort of form your community and your circle in the place where you are, and hopefully you also find a sense of home there. And I think that's what has happened for both of us. We just happen to have stayed where we studied simply because we feel a sort of a kinship with the energy. Although we do share many values as humans, actually the way that I think we're driven in life is sort of different. And recently our dad reflected upon having the chance to visit both New York and Berlin in the same year span after not having visited either in almost a decade. He noticed that, he said it makes sense that you ended up in New York and Bryan ended up in Berlin because you are go, go, go and you don't know how to relax. And Bryan enjoys a work-life balance. And it was something that I think neither of us have actually sat down and thought about, but it makes sense because there is something about the energy here that can, for some people, can feel grinding, but for me, it's invigorating. And similar to Bryan, he loves the fact that people spend time outdoors and he can go biking and play spike ball. And so I think we found, just as humans, a place for us to kind of recharge in whatever form that looks like in between touring. And that sort of segues into the fact that for many musicians, we kind of adopt what's called a portfolio career these days, where performing and touring is not the only thing that we do full time. We also are recording artists. We also teach. And so I think these are avenues that we enjoy exploring in our particular home bases, and as well with collaborations with other musicians that we come into contact with.
Oh, that's fascinating. And Bryan, so I want to say also about your dad. He sounds very perceptive.
He's a
Um,
man of
and
few words, but always lots of nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah,
oh, that's
he's like a
great.
sage.
Right. Okay. And Bryan, that's interesting about the work-life balance in Berlin. I think that might be that's something I haven't really thought that Berlin would be a place for work-life balance. Can you tell us a little bit about that, if that's the way you feel as well?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, although Berlin is one of those hotspots for music, classical music, arts, and so many musicians live here and they keep coming here, I feel like most of us don't actually play that much in Berlin unless we're in one of the 11 orchestras I think we have here. So it's more a place of gathering and of appreciation for culture and supporting. And funnily enough, I go to the most concerts here, and then in the rest of the world, I just play concerts. But here, I really am purely an audience member, and I think it's one of the things that we enjoy is that when we come to our home city, we don't necessarily, for all the freelancers, we don't have to think about work that much, and it's more a place to just be among your community and friends and to live. Uh, a lifestyle that does focus on balance and being connected to nature and yeah, just values that I find very rejuvenating for me during off tour times, and that's what I look for in my home city. When since we're on the road, it's quite intense and rather hectic sometimes. So Berlin for me is this place of retreat.
At the same time, though, on tour, especially for you and I, and especially going to the West Coast, one of our favorite things is to find pockets of time when we can go for a walk or a hike in nature. Yeah, so I would say that we also look for that whenever we can.
Well, I was going to save this for, till the end, but maybe we'll just say, how well do you know Vancouver? And do you have, favorite walks or favorite restaurants or?
Oh yeah, we love Vancouver. We've been to quite many areas, different suburbs. I think I mean, we like to walk around Stanley Park. We love all of the amazing like Asian food options, Japanese food. There's like King Yo Izakaya, which we love, down by the water.
Getting
Um,
specific.
there's the yeah, I mean, she asked.
Yeah, I
Um,
did ask.
there- there's a place called Fresh Sushi, which has like one of the thickest cuts of fish that you can get. It's close to the stadium.
Mm,
Last
Um,
time we were in Vancouver, we went to Fanny Bay Oyster House.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've been lucky that I think we have a BC tour generally about once a year now, and it's a perfect conglomeration of music and food and nature for us. It's almost like a,
Ixalano is always nice. Richmond,
yes.
whenever we have like some hours at the airport, we try to go to Richmond and
Right.
have a nice flight there. And yeah, I mean, it's really a lot to offer.
Have you been to West Vancouver? I don't think you've been to the K-Meek before, have you? West
No,
Not to
Vancouver?
we
the
haven't.
theater, no.
Yeah. Okay. So that'll be a first. We're right,
Yeah.
as you know, we're right on the mountain here. So
Hmm,
lots of hikes.
that'd be
That's
beautiful.
great. So maybe we should also talk a little bit about well, a little bit. Let's talk about the program. And you've got a very clever title, I thought, Unravelling Ravel. Do you want to just tell us about that? Because yeah, just talk us through the meaning there.
Sure. As with most of our programs, we sort of enjoy coming up with some kind of narrative thread. And since 2025 is the 150th birthday of Maurice Ravel, we were thinking about a way to kind of curate some kind of program that wouldn't necessarily be focused purely on his music. And so, what we always find fascinating is how composers, perhaps of a certain time, also influence each other. And so, the idea of Unravelling Ravel is not only unraveling his musical style, but perhaps the influences around him that sort of infused into his music. And that's why in the first half, we're going to hear music by Faya, Ravel, and Stravinsky. And they were actually all part of the same artistic circle in Paris. I actually recently read that they were part of this, they formed this club called Les Apaches, which kind of means like the hooligans or the outlaws. And they really bonded over this common interest to be unconventional and push against the more conservative aspects of what was considered French music back then. And so we really delve into that inner circle in the first half. And then the second half, we start with a piece by Debussy, who was a mentor of Ravel's. And the big sort of centerpiece for this particular program and for our fall season is a new arrangement that we've done for Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition. And you might think, well, what's the connection between Ravel and Mussorgsky? For those of you who may not know, Pictures at an Exhibition was originally a solo piano work by Mussorgsky, and Ravel did a quite renowned orchestration of it, which is generally the version that orchestras around the world perform. And so you sort of see Ravel's imagination, his curiosity, and the way he transforms a work for piano into a full symphony idea. And so what we've kind of done is gone from the source, gone to the expansion, and then sort of distilled it again back down to cello and piano. So I think in our version, it's like a smoothie with extra flavor. All the, all the different textures and tastes and timbres are attempted to be brought out with just our two instruments. So we're looking forward to taking this journey with the audience.
That's amazing. And how was the process of that distillation and that arrangement from the orchestral version? Like how did you guys do that, work that out together?
Well,
Well, go ahead.
arranging is for me, it's always I liken it to looking at something through someone else's eyes or through a lens. And given our very cosmopolitan backgrounds and all the kinds of genres of music that we encounter, I think whether consciously or subconsciously, those always influence how we hear and think about music. So when it comes to a big arrangement like this, I think we're not only trying to honor the source material as closely as possible, but also trying to think of elements that maybe composers didn't encounter before, or techniques that weren't necessarily common back then, and to incorporate them in order to serve um, the music, as well as to make realize this vision that we have. And so I think with Mussorgsky, you have so many, it's like really these little tableaus, these scenes of very lively characters, and because they were inspired by real paintings, you do get a very visual sense of the music, and that is a great guide to how to set up a character and atmosphere within a few seconds, because the transitions happen so quickly. And with the cello and piano, you already have such distinct textures and timbres that you can play with. So actually, it was a lot of fun to work on it together, and to just really take a lot of risks and push the boundaries. And I think the good thing about making your own arrangement too is that it's constantly alive. So I'm sure, up until the day of the first concert, we'll still be adjusting things. And yeah, I mean, that's part of live music too.
Absolutely. Yes, that's exciting for us to hear. Do you have any little, let's see, like a little treat you could give us now of some kind of interesting technique and certain movement that it comes out in? Anything you'd like to share? Something special, either a cello or a piano or both? So I put you on the spot.
I'm going through the movements. Maybe without giving too much away, I will say that when we're arranging, sometimes we have an actual sound in our mind, and it's up to us to explore how our instruments can make that sound versus being limited by what our instruments conventionally do, if that makes sense. So maybe I'll leave that as like a little surprise. nugget.
That's very interesting. I'm personally very curious now. Okay, great. Thank you very much. And then you also have on the program a little bit of other Mediterranean flavors. So we've got music of Manuel de Falla with Spanish songs, and then also Stravinsky with Italian flavors. Can you tell us a little bit about those two works and what they bring?
Yeah, the Faya is a renowned song suite originally written for voice and piano, and it's in a similar way to the Mussorgsky, also these very quick scenes, flashes of different regions also in Spain. And each one has very much a distinct character. It's very influenced by flamenco tradition, so you'll hear the cello and piano sort of evoking guitar and percussion, castanet, and in general flamenco dance rhythms. So it is very, yeah, it's a picture of Spain in all its diversity, and despite the fact that some of the movements are even one minute or 1.5 minutes, you really get a full sense of each atmosphere in a very fulfilling way.
They're like postcards from different various regions of
Wow,
Spain.
wonderful.
And the Stravinsky suite was actually inspired by a ballet called Pulcinella. And so that actually was originally scored for a chamber orchestra and three singers. I'm now actually realizing a totally separate thread of this program that we weren't maybe conscious of, which is having these various influences of other instrumentations kind of being distilled into our two instruments. I think that's actually something that we love doing and bringing out of our instruments, is like kind of this expansion of sound, where people, you might think of chamber music as, you know, just for, in our case, two people sitting on a stage with each on with one instrument. But because, as Bryan mentioned, our specific instruments, the piano and the cello, actually have such a wide range, we can really sort of magnify that. And that sort of ties into actually our duo name. The reason why we're Cheng² is because when we were first starting out, people sort of marveled. They thought, you know, like the power, it doesn't feel like it's just two people. It's like it's kind of amazing that the power of two, or how also that kind of translates to the audience, because there is this feedback loop between us and listeners, and it's constantly this organic thing. And so we have the idea of yeah, the magnifying power of the two. So hence the power of two becoming Cheng². So I'm realizing now, as we're having this conversation, that it's all tied together in this weird subliminal way.
Yeah, in intuitively tied together,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, that's lovely. And I love that idea of the exponential uh range that you have with your two instruments. That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm just curious, when does your tour start?
It starts next
17th
the
of October.
17th. Yes, we
Okay,
start
and
in
where?
Kamloops.
In Kamloops. Okay.
Yeah, then we go to White Rock.
Yeah.
Then we go to Meek.
Yeah.
Then we go to Oliver. And then we kind of cross the border a little south to near where we go to Pasco in Washington State. And
Great.
so it's like a little, yeah, a little West Coast
That's
run.
great. Thank you so much for your time. So just a reminder to everyone, that's Sunday, October 19th at 3 p.m. We're also going to have a pre-concert talk. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about the Mussorgsky Ravel Chung at that time. And thank you so much for your time. Great to meet you, Bryan and Silvie, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. See you
Okay, take
soon.
care. Thanks so much.
You too.